student loan is a plan to enslave Nigerian students, Asuu alleges. This is serious. So we understand Tinubu, since he came to power, has been talking about student loan, student grant, student loan, student loan, student loan. And this student loan now, even up to now, people have not seen the loan itself in the first place. But they just know the president is talking about student loan. His own people are talking about minister student loan, student loan. And because student loan is to be given, or rather grant, or whatever it is, higher institutions have all increased their students' school fees. And now people are paying high fees and the loans have not been disbursed. Now it is coming out now that there is a plan, federal government plan to enslave Nigerian students. That is why they're bringing a student loan. And Asuu is alleging it, not just ordinary body. So we need to dive into the details. And if at the end of the day, students will dodge the loan, but they're still paying high school fees because those schools will never drop their school fees. And one of the major reasons they will not drop their school fees is because exchange rate and cost of living, cost of running businesses has gone up, skyrocketed over how many percent? Over 300%. And so they will need more money to run the institutions. Okay. So with this now, I'm sure students will not take this loan again. But again, let's dive into the details. This controversial stance was highlighted during a press conference held in Uyo, the capital of Akwa Ibom State, on Monday. So the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Asuu, Calabar Zone, has voiced strong objections to the federal government's new student loan initiative, labeling it a tactic to perpetually in-debt Nigerian students. Okay. The zonal chairperson of Asuu, Dr. Happiness Uduk, expressed the union's concerns, asserting that the loan scheme is a strategic move to enslave Nigerian students or Nigerian youths. This criticism comes in the wake of the student loan portal's launch last Friday, which saw an influx of applications from 3,764 students across 126 institutions on its first day. Oh boy. So the federal government has defended the loan program as a necessary measure to ensure that no Nigerian youth is deprived of higher education due to financial constraint. However, Asuu's leadership argues that the solution lies not in loans but in more direct support measures. Dr. Uduk pointed out the irony in current policymakers who themselves benefited from scholarships and bursaries in their student days, now endorsing a loan system for the new generation. Furthering this point, Asuu's national president, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, has also been vocal in his opposition, suggesting that the government should revert to providing bursaries instead of loans. So echoing this sentiment, Dr. Uduk, alongside 8 other union chairpersons, signed a statement advocating for increased government subvention to higher institutions rather than burdening students with loans. Uduk said it is disheartening that people who attended schools on scholarship enjoyed meal subsidies, free laundry services, and bursary awards are the same running our economy today. Their children are on scholarship in the best foreign universities in the world, but after siphoning our economy, they turn around to impose a strangulating education loan on taxpayers, or rather on taxpayers' children who will be enslaved and remain indebted to the country forever. They do not mind the devastating effect of this scheme on the country, such as depression, suicide, and colossal loss of intellectuals. So to this end, we vehemently condemn the idea of education loans and state clearly that using the money for intervention in higher institutions will bring about a positive turnaround of events that will make our institutions self-reliant with highly subsidized tertiary education in Nigeria. The Asuu chairperson called on the federal government to come to a renegotiation table and reconvene a committee to review the agreement reached by Asuu leadership and Professor Nimi Briggs-led government committee, with a view to adjusting the document according to the current economic realities so as to have acceptable salary structure for university lecturers. She also condemned the indiscriminate proliferation of universities in Nigeria without adequate funding by both the federal and state government, noting that the 2020 Asuu Federal Government of Nigeria Memorandum of Action, which stressed the need to review the NUC Act to make it more potent in arresting the reckless and excessive establishment of universities, be carefully implemented. So she said, we urge the President Tinubu-led administration to refrain from further proliferation of universities and rather consolidating on the already existing ones. What we need are universities that are adequately equipped and empowered to address the challenges confronting Nigeria, not glorified schools. So on the ongoing minimum wage negotiation, the Asuu Calabar zone urged the federal government to immediately deploy the instrumentality of collective bargaining to include or to conclude the social dialogue, saying such would lessen the invasive decline in the socioeconomic lives of Nigerians. This is serious. So the position of these ASU members, Calabar chapter, actually has its own pros and cons, merits and demerits. We agree that in the old days, a lot of people took bursaries. I think I also enjoyed bursaries 1 or 2 times or so in our time. Okay, so, and people were given scholarships, school fees were low, subsidized, and that made a lot of people, in fact, in the then and Bursaries of 1979 to 1983, there was free education in the then Bendel state and even some part of Midwestern states. You had free education. That was under Bursaries and that UPN, okay, United Party of Nigeria, UPN. So at the end of the day, a lot of people had to go to school without really spending their fortunes. But these days, things are no more like that, okay? So rather than looking for a way to subsidize the education for the poor and then provide free education, and at the same time, provide a good learning environment that is well-funded and maintained university, we are talking about loan, okay? So on the other side, loan is also good because most countries that offer student loan, like advanced countries, yes, you are indebted, but what you pay is also very, very minimal, and that provides a kind of opportunity for people who are not able to fund themselves to get money from government, and anytime they get employment at graduation, they can start paying back, okay? And they take it in a manner that they don't feel it. Some pay £30, some pay £40, and maybe spread it for 30 years. That is no money anyway, because they have a social security system, they have an insurance system that ensures that when you're not working, they know you're not working and they're not going to drag you. And when you get a job, you pay for, because your social security number or your national insurance number will show that you've gotten a job, and they start taking it again. So it's not as if they're going to cut off your neck, okay? So with all of that put in place, you know that people are able to go to school. Even in those countries, some people still don't want to own. They don't want to go to school under the loan stuff. But again, it's a way of letting people have access to education. The only problem with Nigeria is that even if the people finish, how will they pay back the loan when there's no business, there's no work? The environment is not providing job. Businesses are not surviving. Under normal condition, government can't employ everybody. Somebody has to open a business to employ some people off the street. But that environment is not conducive right now. So how will that work? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. So now the Asuu Calabar Cross River State branch, or rather Unical branch, they met at Uyo, and then they made all of these assertions. And they want government to look at the way of funding universities, stop proliferation or allowing proliferation of universities that are just glorified secondary schools. They are not even up to university standard, all in the name of having a university. I mean, when they're not funded, they can't offer quality education, and will have them all over the place. And that is also not a very good way of handling education. So let's get into the details. Somebody said, I think the loan is not a compulsory one. Anybody that need it could go for it. Whoever don't should refrain or restrain from it. And I agree. Student loan is not mandatory. It's there. They're not forcing Nigerian students to go and take. Just know that these are the commitments if you take it. That is all. Also should leave students with their progress. Don't let them distract you from your focus. Students. That is advice to students. Not only intervention, what happened to past intervention that VCs and governing councils looted without mercy? Let those be indeed those who need loan go and take the loan. I agree. Sometimes they fund the schools, the Asuu, the vice chancellors and chancellors of universities, the governing councils of universities, they loot some of these monies. That is another thing. Okay, if you go and say, let's go and carry audit on most of the federal and state universities in Nigeria, the fund that have received in the past 10 years, what they did with it, it will shock you what you find that those monies were not judiciously spent. That is another big problem. And that is how to see or show that the corruption has eaten into the tiniest fabric of Nigerian structure. And that is very bad. Nobody is trustworthy anymore. And so, thank you, Asuu. Okay, thank you. Asuu is a dangerous association that are always out to cause confusion. What confusion is that? Asuu is a group of people that does not have the interest of the students because all the intervention the government has been giving were looted. Okay, has been granted to the universities in the past only end up in the pocket of the VCs and governing councils and Asuu. So the student's loan is not compulsory. Whoever that need it can go for it, and whosoever that doesn't need it can abstain. Asuu, how many students have you paid their school fees since rather than to do the needful things for the students? But you are castigating the government's loan in bad light. Don't mind these people. So those are the things. The loan has its own pros and cons. If you need it, you take it. If you don't need it, you leave it. Before you apply, you fill a form and there are commitments there. If you're not comfortable with the commitments, forget about it. Those are the things. If you know you can afford your school fees, go and pay. Because even in the advanced countries like UK, US, and Canada, even with the availability of benefits and the student loan, it's not everybody that is taking the loan. If you want it, you take. If you don't want it, you leave it. And government will be glad as well. So thank you for listening, and let's have your comment on this Asuu matter with student loan.